Welcome, everybody. This is Christina here from Christina Mathewson Naturopath. I'm going to be talking with Linda today. So she's going to be joining me on Conversations with Carnivores. This is my favorite thing to actually do because I think that sometimes hearing everyday people's stories actually is one of the most powerful things that we can do to actually help others along the journey because, there's lots of big names out there. There's lots of people out there sharing their stuff, but sometimes it's not until you come across somebody else who's where you're actually at, or has been
Right.
through what you've actually been through that it can make the most difference in actually helping us. So welcome,
Right.
Linda, to the
Thank
to the
you.
program.
Wish I'd have known I was going to use my computer, but anyway,
It's all
it's
good.
nice to be here. It's
It's
actually nice to be alive. Yeah, I was really sick, but
Yeah. So do you want to, well, there's two things that I want to say here because Linda and I have met through um Christians who are doing carnivore groups. Like she runs a she
right,
runs a support group there. So that's kind of how we met. And then it's kind of, we've chatted offline and or
right.
in a more private space and so on, and got to know each other a little bit. So let's start with, what was life like for you before you started carnivore?
I had a disc rupture in my back in 1979, and ever since then I had to lay down, sit down to rest my back because the nerves were pinched. And it just got worse. I had degenerative bone and joint disease, and it's a horrible life having to stay home and lay down and try to raise three children. It was just bad. Um, and the diabetes and then the fatty liver disease didn't help.
How long did like that start for you? Like how long did you live with that bone degeneration and so on?
I wasn't diagnosed until 2011, but I don't know actually when it started. I've got almost every disc in my neck and down my back has bone spurs and inflammation at the time. And I I ate Swerve in my ice, and I made some heavy whipping cream ice cream, and I ate a lot of Swerve, and all I did was get more inflammation back. But I was pain free for about a month,
Yep.
and that's where I'm headed this time.
The positive part of like being pain free for that period of time tells you that your body can do it. Uh,
Right. That's
so it's just a
when I hear people say they've eaten off the diet, they eat for emotions or whatever. I weigh 122 pounds this morning. You have no idea what you're headed for until you get there. And when you
Mhm.
get there, you can wear skin tight clothes if you want to. I mean, it's just a totally different. I'm not hiding myself all the time. And I don't have to sit down to rest my body because it's not stressed anymore. And I try to tell people that the inflammation is the most horrible part of being sick. And once you've got rid of it, you're fine. Things are totally different, totally
Yep.
different.
So I'm curious then for you. So 2011 was when it kind of properly started to get diagnosed for you. That's a long
Right.
time between
It
2011 and
is.
2023. So
Yeah.
what happened within that time for you?
Well, then I got diabetes. And well, 2004, I was diagnosed, and my A1C was 15.4. So I don't know how long I'd had diabetes. And people say it runs in the family. No, it does not. Bad eating habits run in the family.
Mm,
And I don't think most of these diseases are really diseases. They're disorders caused by the food we eat. And because when I changed the food I ate, it took me about 5 months before I felt well enough to stay out of bed for any length of time. And I
yep.
started cleaning my house again, and it's just a totally different life. But the fatty liver disease was what caused me to be desperate. You feel nauseous all the time, and it just I don't even remember how bad I felt anymore, but I know I felt horrible. And I feel for people like that and
Mm.
that don't know that they don't have to suffer. It makes me angry. It really, and you hear my parent died from complications of diabetes, but they didn't have to.
Yeah.
And doctors don't tell you that. I don't even know if they know because the doctor I used at first, he was diabetic and he obviously didn't know he didn't have to be. Um, it's just a terrible thing that they've done to us. I don't know who did it, but this the manufactured. I didn't understand when I asked the Lord. I said, "Why was that food so bad for me?" He said it was all man-made.
Hmm.
So manufactured food, if you eat what God made, which we're limited on that now, you should be fine.
Yep. So I'm curious then as well for you. So you had the disc issue, so you then developed things like diabetes and then fatty liver disease. What led you to carnivore?
I prayed and asked the Lord. I said, it all of a sudden I realized I was in a trap. And I said, a trap has a way out. How do I get out? And within a day, my husband yelled from the den and said, "This doctor on TV, on YouTube says you don't have to have diabetes." And the next day, we started the diet. Well, we ate mostly meat and green beans for vegetables, and I ate candy bars. But I got delivered from candy bars, so the diet there wasn't any problem of how do you get over your candy addiction. So I was free to start.
Yep. I'm
And
curious,
I
when he
go
said
ahead.
that to you, like this doctor says you don't need to have diabetes. What did you think?
Well, in the South, a lot of people they'll say what? Anyway, I couldn't believe I have suffered for 20 years and I didn't have to.
Yeah.
And at first it made me angry that doctors didn't know that you didn't have to. I was on insulin. I was on 230 units of insulin every day, plus, and the little pen only goes to 160. So
Yeah.
you either leave it sticking in your leg and turn it up, or you shoot yourself twice. And then fast acting insulin because it never would go low enough. And I probably quit using insulin faster than I should. But diabetic medicine makes you more diabetic.
Yeah.
I thought my sugar of glucose at that time, it wasn't any higher than it had been when I was on the insulin. So why not?
Yep.
But my
And
A1C the other day was 5.6. So I was
yay.
excited. And I haven't taken anything in over a year.
Do you remember what your A1C was at its worst?
I want to think it was 8 or 8.5. I don't, my doctor had 5 years worth of records, so it didn't really tell everything. And the last time I went to the doctor, he didn't even do a liver panel, which I had the fatty liver, so uh, they're not very smart.
I'm like, okay, that should be a standard for you.
Well,
Interesting.
I try to teach him something different every time I go, and he just sits there. The medical community will never admit that you have beat diabetes. You're stigmatized. You'll always be diabetic as far as
Yeah.
they're concerned. They're not God, so I don't care.
So for me, that's part of the reason that I didn't actually go down the pathway of getting diagnosed. I purposely, like as a naturopath, I knew what the parameters were and what the diagnostic sort of results were. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't need a doctor to tell me any of this sort of stuff. I don't
I
want
can
any of
do my
this on my records.
right. I can do my A1C test at home. I don't need
Yeah,
to go. He can't
yeah.
do anything for me anyway.
I'm curious. So, how long have you been carnivore now?
22 months. I started January the 4th of 2021, and I'm fine. It's not hard. I mean, you have to eat, so why not eat this?
So you're nearly coming up to your second birthday.
Right, right.
So at what point in those 2 years ish, almost then, um, did you come off medication and so on? Tell us about the journey of coming off medication for you.
The first month, I didn't have to take very much insulin because I think my body was in shock. And then I went back and I might have taken, I didn't write it down. I might have taken 70 units a day for a while. And then about 8 months in, I was changed over to metformin, but it tore up my stomach. So I just
It's
quit.
terrible.
It really is. I have berberine if I needed to take it, but I haven't taken it.
Yeah. Metformin is one of my least favorite medications, one of the many, because of how it operates and how it blocks the absorption of nutrients. So
Yeah.
essentially, it creates, so for most people, when they start their diabetic journey, if they've been caught early in it, they'll go to the doctor will put them on metformin. Metformin will block them absorbing actually nutrients. So it will lower their blood glucose because they're not absorbing food, but it also makes them malnourished. And so the more
Ah,
malnourished they get, the worse the diabetes eventually end up getting. So it just becomes that pathway onto insulin and so on for a lot of people. And so and it leaves people feeling depleted as well. So it's probably a
right.
good thing that it didn't sit well for you and didn't work well for you.
Right. I have a cousin that's on metformin and she doesn't want to do the diet because she's fine, but
She's
she's
not fine
not.
though.
I know. I said, but you're still sick. Well, it's too expensive to eat, to buy all that meat. And I said, but you're
Yeah,
not buying anything else. No cans, no boxes, no anything. You get
yeah,
bacon, eggs, butter, and you go get your meat. You eat steak every day if you want to. No.
yeah.
And it really just, I had to block her because I just couldn't listen to it anymore. It really makes me feel bad for her. And
Yeah.
I had to take a break.
I think that's the hard part as well, seeing people who are unwell and going through challenges.
Right.
Their excuses, and I get some of the excuses are feasible. Like I get it, not having the money and so on and so forth. But I also think that you've got to think outside of the box of you're not buying the carrots and the potatoes and all of the other stuff as well. So
And
there's
all
this
it
cost that's
does,
automatically gone.
right, all the vegetables and fruit, the fruit would rot in the bowl on the table or the vegetables rot in the refrigerator. It's insane, you could eat hamburger patties every day if you had to.
Yeah.
I have lots of ideas, but nope, she didn't want to.
I think that's
Anyway,
the challenge though.
my husband's whole family, they've got diabetes and his sister has MS and no, I'm crazy. They called him trying to get him to talk me down and talk me out of eating carnivore. I thought there is just no way you can forget it.
I think that's hilarious in many ways. You've clearly gone from somebody who was an insulin dependent diabetic, not able to
Right.
function in bed most of the time, to
Most of the
somebody who's
time.
now out and about, not on any
Right.
medication, totally free in that
Right.
sense. But you
Right.
should stop doing the thing that made that happen.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they didn't come around and console me when I was laying in bed when I was sick. So
Yeah.
why do they worry now?
Well, and the
It
thing is, I'm
just,
curious, 'cause for me, it seems like a really interesting sort of paradigm of you're sick, you're in bed, you can't actually function, you're an insulin dependent diabetic, all of this type of stuff. Now you have a life and you have the ability
right.
to enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy what I get to do. If I want to go to the store, I can't. I stay home a lot because there's a lot of crazy people out there. And I pass.
But from that perspective of this night and day, but now I'm worried about your health. Um,
Right.
I would everything that you've done has shown that you're healthier than you
Right.
were.
His sister's
It's
a
just an
nurse.
interesting
His sister's
paradigm.
right. His sister's a nurse, and she's convinced that it's not sustainable. And I said, "What do you think your ancestors ate?" They didn't eat fast food and they didn't eat packaged food. They ate meat. They might have had a garden, but they couldn't eat vegetables year round because
Yeah.
they only grow certain times of the year.
And if you only ate vegetables year round, like from what you could grow in your garden, like if you only ate those, you would end up dying from starvation. Because if you don't have
Right,
enough fat or protein, that you die from those things.
right.
It's the same as like, there was a period of time where settlers died from rabbits because there wasn't enough fat on the rabbit to actually sustain
Oh,
their body. So they died from proteins or fat starvation. And so,
I didn't think of that.
yeah,
I never thought of that. We don't really eat much rabbits here, but there's a lot of them.
you can certainly eat rabbit, but you just got to add some fat to it and you've got to have some
Right,
other like fats within your diet. But like for those people that were going through those times where they were settling or they were pioneering and all they could catch was rabbit and
right,
vegetable made them die of starvation because there wasn't
right,
the fat and there wasn't enough protein um, to sustain them for a healthy life. And so, that argument of like just, the vegetable garden, it wasn't enough. It wasn't,
right.
yes, it helped through starvation, but it didn't make people thrive.
Yeah. I'm just amazed at how far from real food we've come. And when you think about it, everything I ate was packaged food.
Yeah.
It, we might have meatloaf, but it was full of ketchup and things like that. It
Well,
wasn't
usually,
necessarily
people will put
healthy.
like wheat and breadcrumbs and stuff like that in it as well
Right.
to stretch. I've been thinking about it quite a lot at the moment because I'm looking at like meat prices and how families are doing it. And when I go to the store, it's like pasta and rice and like breadcrumbs and things and it's all designed to
Cereal.
stretch the meat, like the to
Right.
make it go further and fill people up. And I'm like, but you don't realize that that stuff actually makes you hungrier. And so
It
if you just
does.
ate the meat, you would actually be eating less volume because you would actually be
You
satisfied
do.
and full.
Well, at 122 pounds, I can honestly say I can eat one or two hamburger patties a day, and that's all I really need. If I need more, I eat more, but that and some butter, I'm fine. I eat
So
eggs and bacon.
I'm curious. Um, you said 122 pounds you are now. What were you at your heaviest?
224. That's what the doctor goes by. Actually,
Yeah.
I weighed 233 one time because I was holding fluid, but um, 224.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm
you've
60,
lost
I'll be
what?
six.
Half your body weight?
Yeah, I lost 102 pounds and I'll be 66 years old in a couple of months. So my mother always told me that lose weight when you're young because when you get older, it's hard to lose weight. And she meant well, but anybody can do it. It doesn't matter how, most of the people on the boards I see are in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it.
One of the things that I love about your story in particular was that you were basically immobilized in the sense of like you
Yes.
were very, very sedentary. You were mostly in bed and so on, which means that like if we look at a lot of the other weight loss programs that are out there, they'll tell you you have to get up and you have to be exercising. And that for somebody who's got chronic pain and chronic health issues is completely out of the realm of what they're actually able to do in that moment in time.
Right. I had three back surgeries, my lower back. And the first one, the doctor said, I want you to get to where you can walk a mile a day. So the month later, I went back to see him and he said, how far are you walking? I said, down the driveway and back up because I can't go any further. My back hurts. It hurt bad. I was scared to go off from the house because I didn't know if I could walk back home. It hurt
Mm-hmm.
bad. He didn't care. He actually told me to take 6 Advil 4 times a day to try to get rid of inflammation. Mm-mm.
Which is
No, I'm
eventually
not going
going
to
to
do that.
cause like a liver issue. Like,
Right. They don't know. They really don't know. Because You see people out and you think all you got to do is stop eating this and start eating this, and you'll be fine. You won't be fat. You won't be sick. It's just that simple. And I thank Dr. Berry because I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I really believe I would be dead now if it hadn't been for him and his information. And it's all free.
So I'm curious, was he the doctor that your husband yelled from the other room about?
I call him the crazy doctor from Tennessee. How can somebody come up with you don't have to be diabetic or type 2 diabetic?
Yep.
And the type 1s act like they get a lot of help out of it too.
Yeah.
Well, they're not eating bad food.
I see a lot of type 1s who have dramatically improved their health. Like some of them still are going to need some insulin, but they've
Yeah.
dramatically reduced the amount that they need, and they've dramatically reduced like their highs and their lows. Like they're more, even keeled on
Yeah.
what their actual results are. It's really dramatic.
I hated the most was waking up in the morning and my sugar would be like 40 or 50 because you never know. You don't know if it's, you just don't know. And it's
Yep.
miserable.
Yep.
I have no more misery. Done. Even my kids are better.
So from that perspective, what do your kids think about it? Do they come along with you, or they, where
My
are they?
daughter, my daughter finally in the last 2, 3 weeks started on the diet. She's very heavy. She weighs about 300 pounds, and I have a picture of me at 224 pounds, and I look just like her in size. She's 4 inches taller than me.
Yep.
So, but it looked the same.
Yep. It's interesting. What about your son? You have a son too, don't you?
They, no, I
No.
have sons. I have 2 sons, but they don't eat the diet. They're not sick. One of them eats 2 or 3 ice cream shakes every night. I said, when you get sick, and you will, this is what you do to get out of it. I just hate to see it, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're in their 20s. They don't know.
What do they think about you doing it though? Then no problems. They haven't gone, wow,
They're
mom, massive change.
well, the my middle child was going to church with me for a little while, and I think he was just happy to see me better because he stays here with us. The other one lives somewhere else, and um, I watch him give his child sugar and things, and I think, just it doesn't take that much. You can let him eat fruit, but you don't
Yeah.
have to feed him candy.
Yeah.
So when he comes to my house, he eats the way I do. They all eat the way I do if they come here. They get bacon. We cook 10 pounds of bacon twice a week. And they come here, first place they go is the refrigerator to get them some bacon. Even the 1-year-old, he like, he's cute. They're cute when they're 1. He's like 15 months, but he's starting to become his own little person. It's cute. I didn't
Yeah.
think I'd be alive. When they told me they were expecting, I was crying because I didn't think I'd be alive to see him.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
So your health issues didn't just start like at, 2011. They'd started well before then.
In 2001, I had a transverse myelitis. I had a spinal cord lesion at T7, and I'm still numb from under my left breast all the way down. I can feel my leg enough to walk, but if I sit on it and it goes numb, I can't feel my leg. Like if I stand up, I fall down. But it's not really that big a problem. I'm used to it. It's been a long time.
Yep.
But my back, coming to think of it, my back always bothered me. And it doesn't bother me. Not my back. Well, the top part of my back does a little bit, but the rest of it's fine. My neck, I can go all the way back. I couldn't do that. I was going to have surgery, but my A1C was too high for me to heal properly. So
Yep.
now I don't have to have surgery.
I
I
love
know.
that. It's the
Actually,
cheapest surgery you've ever had.
I went back to the surgeon and I said, why don't I hurt anymore? I thought I needed surgery. And he said, you must have gotten all the inflammation out of your body. That's the only reason he could think that I didn't hurt. So
I'm
you can have
curious,
issues.
when you asked that question though, did your doctor go and ask you, what have you been doing?
No. Well, I told him I'd been on a diet, lost 100 pounds, but he didn't ask me what or how.
See, that always interests me because I'm like, as a practitioner, if I had a client that came in and they dramatically changed their health, I'd want to know, what have you been doing so that I can help my other patients with that issue and so on. Or I
I would
could look at
too.
it, investigate it and see what parts were the things that worked, or what, I'd want to know all that information.
When I went, my original doctor, I'd seen him for 40 years. And I went in, I'd weighed 224 and I came in at 162. And I said, I don't take insulin anymore because I don't need it. And I could hear, and the nurse dropped her pen and she looked at me. She said, You what? And so how did you do that? And I told her, and I could hear her out when she left the room. She went out there. She doesn't take insulin anymore, and she's lost, I don't know what the calculation was. How did she do that? Her mother's diabetic and on insulin, but they wouldn't listen to me. They
See,
just
that's
kind of
so sad.
brushed it off. It is.
Like, the really sad part about that, and I'm sure, like, because you've mentioned it as well. The really sad part for me is that people get a diagnosis of diabetes and they're told it's a progressively ongoing situation that's only going to get worse. It's never going to get better. There is no hope, and this just take this drug. When that's,
Right.
you and I are both testaments to that not being the truth. That
It is not the truth.
that this
And
is
it's
something you
not
can change.
hereditary either. It is never hereditary. Not type 2. Dr. Berry says it's self-inflicted, and it is. But we don't know what to eat. They don't teach
Yeah.
us that. And
Well,
they
they
lie
teach us
about
to eat
everything
all the
else.
things that are going to create the scenario, the perfect storm to actually allow that to develop, which is, I think, for me, one of the really big frustrating things. Like, I know, um, in some of the groups that I'm in, that they'll get mad at people like Sean Baker because he'll have a good go at vegans and so on.
Yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? I'm not mad at him for doing that, because somebody needs to say it. If we
right.
get all of this pushback that's telling us that we're evil because we eat animals and so on and so forth, the information that they're putting out is completely false and full of lies, which is like, no animals died in the making of my oat milk. Well, actually, hundreds of animals died in the making of your oat
Right.
milk, whereas one cow died to feed me for, like, a year or half a year.
Right. It's crazy. It really is. I told somebody today wanted to know if anybody had used psyllium to stop diarrhea. And I said, I'd keep one thing in mind. If the doctor said do it, find out what he said not to do and do that. I don't want to listen to them. They
Yeah.
don't know what they're talking. They won't make you healthy. They'll help you manage your little disease until you die.
Yeah. That was one of the interesting things that I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues about recently, who has been to medical school, did medicine, and then moved into functional medicine, which is the space that I work in, which is um, kind of where we were chatting. And she was saying she didn't realize when she went to medical school that that's what they teach you. They teach you how to use medicine, not how to use diet, lifestyle, and all of those types of
Exactly.
things, how to help people be healthy. It's how to help people with medication. And
Right.
that's what she realized, that she'd spent, 5 years of her life learning, and now
And it
has
didn't
had to
help
retrain.
anybody.
Exactly. Had to retrain to actually learn how to avoid the medication that she spent so long teaching
Right.
people how to actually use.
I took antidepressants for, I think, maybe 30 years. And I got to the point my hands shook all the time. So I took something for that. And when I quit the antidepressants, maybe like 2 months after, maybe 3 months after I started, I was on Paxil and I weaned myself off of it and I didn't have to take the other medicine. So it, you have to have one to stop what the other one's doing. And they
Yeah.
don't really know what it's doing. It's a
Well, and that's
shame.
the other thing, is that they're generally not tested in combination either. So, for example, you might have your one medication that is tested by itself and we look at it for safety recommendations. They might occasionally test that with combinations with a couple of other medications, but
Right.
generally I'll see patients that are on 5, 6, 7 to 10 different types of medications. They're not tested all together. They're not
Right.
tested to see what effect do all of these particular medications have on the individual. Um, and it's so wrong. Like for me,
I
it's so
watch
wrong.
my mother-in-law, I don't know how many different things she takes, and then she takes vitamins. And the supplement industry is stupid. They didn't ever work. Now when I take, like, if I can't sleep, I take a melatonin or something, it works. But before it wouldn't work
Yeah.
because I was sick. My system was sick.
Yeah. We in the natural health world, we think about it as energetics. So for example, pharmaceutical medication or IV medication is like very powerful and very strong. And so anything under that seems to work, you seem to have less of an effect because this wipes out everything else. And then under that is like your tablet medication, and then under that is like your supplemental medication. And then under that is things like homeopathics and so on. And when you don't have all of this other stuff crowding out and being loud, this other stuff works better when you actually
They
need
do.
it.
Some of them do work pretty good, but they never were. I've got boxes of supplements. They
Yeah,
just, you have to fix what's wrong with you first.
exactly. And I think, like for me, people will say to me, I don't take supplements except on very rare occasions when there's something that I actually need for a particular type of purpose. And people will say to me, but don't you need this and this and this and this? And I'm like, if I'm able to digest my food, I can get it from my food. And I just need to
Right.
eat more of the food that's going to provide me with those specific nutrients if I'm a little bit lacking in those things. So as a practitioner, I'm only using supplements to help you get back to that place so that we can take them out, because we shouldn't
Right.
need them long term unless you've had an organ removed or an organ damaged through surgery or an accident, or you were born without something. Then
Right.
you shouldn't need them for long term use,
Right.
which
You
makes me a
shouldn't.
bit of a leper in my naturopathic world, because they're like, that's our bread and butter. We make all the money from the supplements that we
I
prescribe
know.
people.
Well,
So
the goal is to get off all medication, but we have been suckered into this. The food is bad, and then you have to have a doctor, and he gives you medicine, and it's just, it's bad. I think we've been deceived in a lot of ways because a doctor
absolutely.
can't cure you,
Well,
and
they're not
medicine
even
makes
allowed to
you.
use that word, cure. That would
Oh,
be that.
really?
That's a word they're not even allowed to use. Yeah,
Maybe that's why the doctor told me that they would never consider me cured of diabetes. I would always be diabetic, but I
yeah,
don't have to go back.
exactly. And look, at the end of the day, I think probably their perspective is that if you go back and start eating all the garbage stuff again, yeah, you're going to get diabetes,
Yeah,
because that's what makes diabetes. But as long as you continue to eat healthy and well, you're not going to get it again.
I never want to go back. It was miserable. I probably spent 40 or so years sick, feeling sick, not having any energy. And I don't want, because I've heard people say, can you go back and eat sugar and stuff? If you do, you're going to get sick again. I mean, just eating that powdered sugar replacement that made me have pain again. I don't want to touch it. It's
Yep.
not worth it. It could take, and people will say, well, I hate to eat this in front of you. I feel sorry for you because you're going to get sick or you're already sick. But I don't miss it.
Yep.
I really don't.
I think for some people it depends on their addictions as to whether it's a problem for them or
Right.
not. But also I think it's a lot of social and cultural as well. Like, if we're used to going to Christmas, for example, and Christmas or Thanksgiving for you guys looks like this particular thing, then that's where people start to feel like they're missing out, is that they're missing the traditions. And I think that mentally, that's where you kind of got to get to that place of like, well, is this tradition loving me, or is it actually making me sick and poisoning me? And
Right.
is it something that I want to continue? And how do I maybe want to do it differently if I don't
I
want to
ne-
do it the way that I've been taught with my family so far.
right. I never liked Thanksgiving dinner anyway. I have my own issues there, but um, anyway, I ever since my parents died, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I never cooked Thanksgiving. I didn't feel good enough to cook Thanksgiving dinner, um, so we just don't.
Well, I think the other aspect too is like for you guys in the US, you have, depending on what you celebrate, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Like this is what they call the holiday gauntlet, where
Right.
you've got to run
We
the
don't.
gauntlet for all of those things.
We've never let our kids do Halloween. It's just
Yeah,
against what I believe. Um, yeah, thanks. Yeah, and every time we'd have a meal afterwards, everybody would pass out because you
yeah.
were
Going
just
to a sugar coma.
carbohydrate overload.
Yes.
Mm.
So I'm curious then, like, talking about these things, have you found going carnivores changed your extended family dynamics a bit or
Yeah, it has, but not in a good way.
oh dear.
I'm the talk of the town, and
Yeah.
they all talk, but it's okay. I'm well, I'm fine. But
Well,
it
that's
gets interesting.
well, I was going to say that's the other interesting thing I find is that like even though you might be the talk of the town, do you find that you actually just manage that better? Like mentally it doesn't get to you because like,
It
I'm feeling good.
right. It doesn't make me depressed at all. It just I don't understand it. I mean, I was really sick. Why can't you see I feel better?
Yeah.
I'm not just thinner, I feel better.
Yeah.
And we went to the a convention center this weekend and we walked around and I could walk. I used to go somewhere and I'd walk down one row and I'd have to beg a chair off of somebody because my back would hurt. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the inflammation or there's no stress on my back anymore. Because skinny people won't tell you there's nothing that you have to hold in anymore. It's
Well,
crazy.
it's interesting. I've found, and I don't weigh as much as you yet. I'm still working on my weight loss. But I have found that the more weight I've lost, actually my back got a bit sore for a while. And it was because I realized that my weight was actually holding me into place. Like
Right,
like I was wearing tires versus, oh, hang
right.
on, I've got to engage my muscles a little bit now to actually
Yeah.
to support me a
I
bit
was
more.
at a place this weekend and I thought I need to work my stomach muscles and then I don't really have to, but I need to. And my husband has me doing squats. My legs were really weak from the spinal cord lesion,
Yep.
and it helps a lot. It really does. And I have a treadmill I walk on. So
Yeah.
I traded my
Your
bed for a
walker.
treadmill, and I got me a pool out back, and I got a tan. I'm doing it. It's 65-year-old woman out there doing it.
I love that. I think when I think about this journey, I kind of am a little bit sad sometimes for the younger version of me that has gone through challenges that it didn't need to have, like that I didn't need to go through because
Exactly.
nobody told me. Like, and I know back then I would have happily just eaten the meat, but my parents were like, no, you've got to eat the vegetables and like, clean your plate and all of that type of stuff. I would have
Oh
just been happy
yeah.
with the meat.
My mother was a good cook, but we always had fried something, either
Yep.
fried chicken or it was always something. We had fresh vegetables because my grandparents grew their own garden and they grew their own cattle and things like that. Um, but we had a lot of sugar.
Yep. So I'm curious now for you, like I'd love to touch a bit more on like the God stuff for you, because I know that's kind of where we met was in that Christian group.
Right.
How does God fit into carnivore for you?
I don't know if you get, I don't know what it is that blocks his voice when I was sick, but he talks all the time. He doesn't just like, I got to go pray and maybe next week he'll answer my prayer. He answers and he answers fast. And it's just totally different. he's been there all along, and he was the one that told me about the man-made food. I had no idea that was what was wrong. It's not carbs. You can count carbs, but if you're eating manufactured food, you're gonna get sick.
Yeah.
Um, it's just different. It really is. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Um, I don't know.
So there are a couple of things that come up in that group quite a lot. One of them is, so one of the ones that I have seen is things like making carnivore God. And I'm like, oh, for me, you're
No,
totally missing it. Because, like, for me, I feel like God led me to carnivore. He basically said,
he did me
"It-
too.
you've got this option, Christina. You can do this or you can do this." Because for
Right.
me, previously, I had died when I gave birth to my last baby. And he had already warned me that I was going to die in that pregnancy. So I'd got everything prepared. I did as much as I could to support my family through that process. And my family needed it because I was on life support and they had to keep bringing me back and a whole bunch of different things. And I'm kind of like, I had this pact with God. I'm like, God, next time I get to the point where I'm going to die, can you just like tell me beforehand? And it was hilarious because we would get these, the free callers like that would ring up and go, "We want to give you this life support, blah 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 blah," or life insurance, where they're trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah.
And they'd ring me up and they'd go, "We've got this fantastic offer for life insurance, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't need it right now. I know when I'm going to die. I'll engage you when I'm actually going to need your services. I don't need it right now." And they would just laugh and like didn't get it because I was like, you don't get that. Like God will tell me. And so I got to
Right.
that point where God said, you either go get the life insurance now or you go do this. I'm like, well, I think I'll go do this. I'll go do carnivore. And so for
Right.
me, God led me to that place. And like you had that experience of actually getting off of the sugar and off of the other stuff that was impacting my physical body that actually allowed my spiritual body to connect with him even more.
Right.
That for me is how I feel about it. I'm
Um,
curious for you
I,
what that experience was
you
like.
beg, cry, plead, heal me, heal me. He can't really heal. If he heals you, you're going to end up right back where you started
Mm-hmm.
from. So when I realized I was in a trap, I said, how do I get out of this trap? And then Dr. Berry was on the TV, and it was just the answer to what I had been asking for. Even my children, they're all uh, from the Lord. They told us we'd never have children, and but after the diet, he talks all the time. I don't know what else to say. He's just like
Yeah.
I called him my hero, and I didn't even know that's actually one of his names in the Bible. That he's hero. He's a hero. He
Yeah.
sings over you with joy, and I wish I knew the words. I really don't.
Yeah. I'm curious for you when I mentioned that some people think that you hold carnivore as God, like
No,
what do you say to those people?
no. God's here. He tells you how to be well, and the journey's been with him, not on my own,
Mm.
because I don't know how far I would have made it on my own. The muscles in my legs, I'd laid in bed so long that I could tell how weak they were. And I thought, I'm
Mm.
never going to recover from this. And I guess it was at that point that I thought, I really don't want to die. And this be my testimony that she loved Jesus so much, she died. Well, that's not right. I wanted him to be glorified in what I ended up doing. And
I
no,
love that.
I don't put it as God, but it was just a sorry testimony,
Yeah.
And how many people they'll say you put it in front of God, but how many people are going to come by your sick bed with you dying,
Mm.
and it's absurd. It really
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Um, and it's today I was crying about it that I can't believe how far I've come from where I'd gotten myself into.
Yep.
But and the other thing is people talk about you can't eat pork. God doesn't want you to eat pork. if you want the Jewish, if you want to eat like a Jewish person, I have the information. There's a lot of things you can't eat. You can't eat lobster, shrimp.
Mm,
Birds have to look a certain way. It just, and he said that law was so that man would understand he cannot save himself. He
yeah.
has to depend on God for his salvation. Um,
One of the things that you and I have talked about in our private conversations is this ideal of healing, because I know from my space that the way that I look at it, and you can correct me with how you think if you see differently, is that when it comes to healing, I see a lot of people praying, take my diabetes away, take this away, take that away, heal me, heal me, heal me. And I've actually seen people get healed. But
oh,
then
have
what
you?
happens is about 3 months later or 6 months later, they come right back to the church and go, it's gone now. Like, I'm sick again. And that's because nothing changed between the moment that they
Right,
were healed and delivered to what they did afterwards. And for
right,
me, my perspective in that is that God wants to walk with you, not just do it to you. And
right.
if nothing changes from a lifestyle illness perspective, now I see that vastly different to you've broken your arm and or you've got a
Yeah,
deformity or something like that. Like for me, I've seen arms grow and all of that type of stuff, and that is a miraculous healing. That's not something that that person can do by themselves.
right. I think you need to ask God, what can I do? What am I doing wrong? If you're sick, what
Exactly.
are you doing wrong? Because you're bound to be doing something if you're sick.
Yeah.
Um, but now I can limit it down. Used to, I'd think, I need my back healed, I need my hip healed, I got a pinched nerve, and then I have diabetes and all these other things. And now you can limit it to, I really do need my spinal cord healed. I don't
Yeah.
need all the other things healed because
Exactly.
I don't even know what word you put on it. What do you call that? Um,
I think about it as injury versus sickness.
yeah,
Whereas an injury, your body can repair to the best it can with its available resources. But you might need something outside of yourself to do that, like God or a
right,
surgeon or a chiropractor or other things to help with that that you can't physically do yourself. But the sickness is where God wants to lead you in a new way of doing
right,
things, in a new way of being, in a new way of getting free. So for me, when I look at the carnivore journey, I recognize that I have to walk that journey with God, because I absolutely have food addictions. I'm definitely addicted to carbohydrates. If I let a little bit in,
they taste
it
good.
they do. And it takes a mile. And you know what I found for myself was to break free of that addiction. I had to be able to bear forth with God and go, what am I hiding from here? What am I using this sugar
Right,
or this carbohydrate to hide from, and get free of that actual thing
right,
versus just using this food to mask it and hide it and pretend it's not an issue
right.
or as a
Well,
distraction.
he told me once, he said, I've healed you with this diet just as surely as I'd have touched you and healed you instantly. But now you know how to help other people get
Mm,
out of the trap. And it's the truth. You do now
yeah.
have the tools to help people get out of the trap.
Absolutely. And I love that you're doing that in that support group. And not just that one, because you're in others. I've seen you in like the women's carnival group, and
Yeah,
I've
some
seen
of
you
them
in
are a little off, but I
I think
go.
my challenges are the food police, like the people that like
That's
the
not
food Nazis.
carnivore. Well, duh, it's not carnivore. Well, one man, you can eat some strawberries and blueberries, but this man had this argument with me. I said I ate way too many blueberries and I kicked myself out of ketosis. And he goes, well, you need to resist. And I thought, I know that, but it happens. Okay. It's just happened. And I probably ate 3/4 of a cup of blueberries and strawberries at
Yeah.
that particular time. I haven't done it since, but it did kick me out of ketosis. Either that or I was already almost out of it anyway. I don't even think I've been in ketosis for a while. I haven't checked. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't intend to lose any more weight. All my clothes fit.
Well,
That's
I
been
think from
expensive.
I love that. That's a good problem to have, though. That's a good
It really
expense to have
is.
to
But when
replace
your
your wardrobe.
underwear gets loose, it gets loose right down there. It feels funny.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. But from my perspective, I think that if what you're doing is working, great, keep doing it. If what you're
right,
doing is not quite working, you're not quite getting the results, you maybe need to tweak or change or shift something to actually
right.
help you a little bit more get those results. So for some people, they're going to be able to do hyper carnivore where they can have some berries and those types of things.
Yeah.
I know for me, I'm still too carby addicted to
Are
actually
you?
have that as a part of something that I could actually have without it me being fixated on it, without it mentally becoming a problem for me. Um,
Okay.
and maybe one day I will get there. But I'm not there yet because I'm
Yeah.
not there yet.
Well, that's
And
not
so I
bad.
think if things
As
work for
long as
you,
you're working
keep
on it.
going. Yeah. And I think
Right.
that's the other element is this is a journey versus a do this is exactly how you have
Right.
to do it. And that means just shifting a little bit as you go on the journey.
Right. You do. You, if I stayed at 150 for 10 months and I didn't lose any weight and I thought it was over, but I still ate the diet. But then I got a stomach virus and I couldn't eat for about a week. It was the worst one I've ever had. And I started losing weight again.
Yep.
And I have up until today, still losing weight. Not very much, but I'm fine. I'm
Yep.
happy. My clothes
Good.
fit. My underwear isn't too loose. That is the weirdest feeling yet, is having your underwear bagging behind you. I
Yep.
heard somebody else, I saw a post about that before. It's just weird.
I'm curious, what has been the hardest thing on this journey for you?
Dealing with other family members. Not really. It wasn't hard. I wanted to better myself, to get well, and losing weight's just a plus
Yeah.
because when you quit eating that food, the weight just falls off. It just goes away. And then in the end, you're smaller, you're happy, you're well. I don't understand why people go off and gain an extra 50 pounds. I just don't. They must never been sick. If they'd been sick, they would have wanted to get well and stay on the diet no matter what.
I think for some people, well, it's a multitude of different things. Some might have some insulin resistance, for example, which makes it really hard to
Yeah,
lose weight. Others might have some emotional stuff, like before that addiction of like utilizing food as a drug because like it's a socially
right.
acceptable drug rather than like if I was using methamphetamine, everybody would be like, no, that's
Oh
terrible,
Lord,
you're a bad
that is
person.
that's a
But
bad
sugar is
addiction in this area of the country.
But sugar is just as addictive as
It is.
methamphetamine and cocaine, and it has the same sorts of effects on our brains. But it's socially acceptable.
Right,
No one would have a problem showing up to somebody else's house with a batch of cookies that they just made.
right.
But if they showed up with a batch of methamphetamine or cocaine,
Yeah,
that would be a little bit different. But the results are actually somewhat the same in many ways, in the
right.
sense of that addictive cycle and so on. And so I think for some people, that's part of it is that they have to break the addiction
I
and
was
start to.
addicted to Snickers candy bars. My dog is named Snickers.
Oh gosh.
I ate at least two a day, if not more. They'd buy me big, like yardstick size Christmas boxes of Snickers. I had
Oh wow.
Snickers. I still find Snickers hidden places, but I don't eat them. I throw them away. And my dog is almost 19 years old and he's still chugging along.
Yeah.
Snickers.
Yeah.
He's black and brown. I guess that's where he gets his name from.
But for a lot of people in breaking the addiction, and for you, you probably did this with God by taking everything to God. But for those people who don't necessarily have that connection, um, they've got to be willing to take the emotional stuff, the pain that they've experienced in
Yeah,
their life, the trauma. They've got to be willing to look at it and take it somewhere, and that's where they tend to fall off the wagon and go
yeah.
other places because it's hard.
I guess I was born again when I was 15, and he's just always been there. And I guess he's my counselor. I used to, you know how people are, they whine and cry, my parents don't love me, blah, blah, blah. I was in my 30s, and one day he said, your parents don't have the same capacity for love that you do. Okay. And it all just kind of melted away.
Yeah,
It irritates you at times, but I didn't whine and cry anymore.
yeah.
Um, I don't see how people live without God. I really don't.
It's a challenging, hard life, I would think. Um,
I think
but I'm curious. So, hardest part was dealing with family. What was the easiest part for you?
easiest.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. um, well, if you eat bacon, you don't crave sugar, so it made it easy being able to. Well, I said, what did the doctor say you could eat? He said, meat, eggs, bacon, and butter. And I said, well, that sounds good. Let's do it. You know, how hard could it be? Um, but I really don't see how people live without God. I really don't. I have a sister that I've never met. We've talked on the phone, and she hates God. She doesn't like Christians. She doesn't like anything. And I feel sorry for her because she has no idea. I said, he would answer you if all you got to do is have a repentant heart and ask him, and he will. But
I'm curious because you just mentioned your husband just then as well. Is he carnivore?
he is, he lost when he got off, when he retired, he tested pre-diabetic, and he had a little high blood pressure. It wasn't real bad, but he was on medicine, and he just quit drinking cokes. And I'm not sure what else he did, but he lost 40 pounds really fast, and it made me really mad because I didn't lose an inch. But he hasn't lost anything, I don't think, in the last 2 years, but he hadn't gained anything either. He
Yeah,
could probably do a fast. I've thought of the fat fast. I don't think I could eat sardines, but I could do fat.
I've got my
I know
sardines.
I
Yeah.
couldn't do sardines. I opened a can, and they were like, they had just really weird texture. I pass.
Yeah. If you mash them up like tuna, you can
Oh,
mentally
I
get it
didn't
like
think of
tuna.
that. I tried to eat the whole thing.
Oh no, mash
Mm-mm.
them up, mash them up.
Okay. But we have added liver to our diet. I didn't know that I liked liver. I thought I didn't like it. But he puts it in the hamburger meat, and it's really good. It doesn't taste
Yep,
different to me. But
yep,
I haven't had any organ meat the whole time until the last week we started eating liver. So,
yep. Good. And I think
yeah,
like where people start is not often where they finish. Like you'll often start one way and then, just add things and change things and tweak them as you go along
yeah.
to what actually works for you and supports you and so on. Um, so for anybody at home that is listening to this or watching this YouTube video that's wondering whether this is something they could do, should do, or whatever, what would you have to say to them?
You should do it. Just try it for a couple of months or however long. But when you start losing weight and you find out you feel much better, it's foolish to just give it up. But at least try it,
Yep.
especially if you're diet. And if you have a fatty liver, I had a fatty liver, and it tested well a couple of months ago. So you can get out of it. You're in a trap that you can get out of. And the doctors have not helped you. They won't help you, but they'll be really nice about it. It's nice to see you this time. Yeah, right. Anyway,
I, I think that that's probably the hard part is to recognize that the doctor who's providing you with the medicine or the advice and so on is not necessarily a bad person. They've just received bad information. It's the
Right.
education that they've received, and separating those two things is hard for a lot of people, because they think because you're a nice person that you only must want good things, and that doesn't mean that they want bad things for you. It just means that they don't necessarily know
They
how
don't
to get those
know.
good things.
They couldn't know. How could they know when they're diabetic and they're sick? How would they know? Dr. Berry said he was sick and he didn't like it, so he tried to find out, what do I do to change it?
Mm.
Anyway.
I had a patient this week who, her doctor is around about the same age as she is, and also has got diabetes. So she's got diabetes and the doctor's got diabetes, and she's like, I'm getting better and you're just medicating. And the doctor said to her, well, I'm not going to give up my cakes and my sugars and my rice and this type of stuff. And
He'll
that's
get
the choice.
he'll get
Like,
something else. He'll get another prize, the fatty liver or amputation.
mm,
It's bad. I see people at the doctor's office and I think all you have to do, well, my original doctor said most people can't make a lifestyle change. I said, but you
mm.
never told anybody that. You never said if you make a lifestyle change, everything would change.
Exactly. At least, okay, so let's say as a doctor, you don't think that they're going to make the change. At least give them the respect to give them the option,
Right.
because then they've got a choice. They can choose. And this is what I say to my patients as well, that, you can choose this pathway if you want to. You're a grown adult. You're allowed to make those choices. You can choose those things. But also know that when you're choosing this pathway, which might be medications or supplements, etc., that without the objective of fixing the underlying reason, then you're also choosing the follow-on issues that develop from that.
Yeah.
Or you could choose this pathway of fixing the underlying issues and not having the rest of the follow-on problems that tend to develop from that
Right.
space as well. The choice is yours. You're allowed to choose. Like, God gives us
Right.
the choice of free will. So you're allowed to choose, but know that you're choosing the choice and make an active decision to make the choice. And when doctors don't give you that information, you have no choice. You're only given
Mm,
one pathway to
one
walk on.
choice. Yeah. Most people don't want to give up vegetables. We have to eat vegetables because that's what makes us healthy. And I said, most of the people in these groups, the vegetable heavy people, having a lot of trouble with, what is it, oxalate dumping. I don't know what
Yeah,
they're talking about because I didn't eat a lot of vegetables, but it wasn't that hard to quit sugar.
yeah,
Just eat a lot of bacon. How hard can that be? And it tastes good.
yeah.
So,
I love that.
but
So if somebody, you go.
that's been the biggest. The vegetables is the big that. Yeah, vegetables.
Mm. I think that's the interesting thing that I watch, and I've had a number of discussions with, like, you and David Rain as well, about the vegetable stuff, because of course in the Christian group it's a question that comes up repeatedly, which is like, but God created vegetables, and I'm
Not
like,
what we have today. I asked,
exactly.
and he said, I did not make the vegetables and fruit of today. Man, they crossbred things. That's one thing. But now they're genetically modifying them and
Yeah,
making them something entirely different. And they're not good for you. Um, they upset people's. I never have upset stomach. I used to, and most people I know do. They chew Tums and Rolaids all the time. That's what's probably giving them indigestion.
mm.
That and
Well,
all the fat, the oil.
the other part of, like, what you were just saying there, I just had a quick into my mind, is even when it comes to cow's dairy. So, for example, a lot of people will have some issues with cow's dairy, and they're like, oh, I can't have cheese, I can't have butter, I can't have these things. And my thought process on that is, you know, what we've done, even with crossing of the plants, we've done the crossing of the animals too. And we've bred different cows with different cows to make them produce higher amounts of milk. But when we look at that milk and we look at the product that's produced from those cows, we have a decrease in nutrients. So, for example, a Jersey cow generally produces like an A2 type of protein. So A2 milk, and most people don't have an issue with that, even if they've had lactose intolerance and things like that. The A2 milks, they're often very, very good. And that Jersey cow produces less milk, but the milk that it produces is of a much higher quality and standard when it comes to nutrient density. But we've gone profit. We've got to get the most amount of money out of these cows as we possibly can. So we crossed cows that would produce more milk for longer periods
even
of
if it's
time,
worse quality.
and it's worse quality.
I
And
just
then
can't
we do,
I can't believe some of the things I'm finding out. I didn't understand about the cow milk. I didn't really like milk that much, but I can't eat cheese. It upsets my stomach.
yeah.
He made me
Well,
a hamburger thing one time with cheddar cheese in it. It was terrible. The after.
Well, and that's the other aspect of like you talking about the man-made products of like, we've man-made bred these cows, like that normally wouldn't have hung out with each other. They were from two different
Right.
locations. We brought them together to crossbreed them to make, more product. And then what we do is we take that milk and we heat treat it. So we kill all of the good stuff in it. And then
Yeah.
we do all of these other processes to it that make it really bad. And so for me, when I'm thinking about those things, we even are starting to do it. Well, we even have been doing it with animals.
Yeah. They talk about having smart cities where you don't have any meat, no animal products.
Mm.
They're going to be easy to whip because
Yep.
they're all going to be sick.
Yep.
I just can't get over say. And they said New Orleans was one of, I don't live near New Orleans. I live by Texas and Arkansas. But in New Orleans, those people are not going to give up their meat. I can't even imagine them giving up their meat. They like meat.
Well, I think that's why they're going down that pathway of using like meat replacements. And the other one is they're using 3D printers to create meat. So they're printing meat. Just like, oh my
I,
gosh.
I saw one article about I think it's called Upside Down Foods. They're the ones that are printing the chicken, and it's called Rubicon, the program. And when
Yep.
you look up that word, it says a line drawn in the sand that once you cross it, you have no redemption, or it's a word similar to that, that you can't go back.
Yep.
So I don't really know what that would mean for the people that start eating it, but I wouldn't eat it, not
Yeah.
knowingly. I
Well,
mean,
and
if it,
that's the thing is that the marketing stuff, you said not knowingly, the marketing is the big key to a lot of this stuff, is that so many people are eating food that they don't actually know what it is, thinking that it's actually something that's healthy for them. And it's all about
cereal,
marketing. Exactly.
cereal. I saw Dr. Berry's post about the lady in the cafeteria or the restaurant trying to get her daughter to put something in her stomach, and she was giving her Fruit Loops.
Mm,
It's hard not to say something to people, but then you think, well, it sounds kind of self-righteous if you say,
yeah.
if you give her that, that's what's causing you and her both to be sick. I'm not really sure how
Yeah.
to approach that.
It's a really hard one, I think, because people feel like you're attacking them. Like if he walked up to, I saw that post too, but if he'd walked up to them, they might have felt like he's attacking them. But you might have
Right.
also gotten that one person that was like, thank you for telling me this information. Like, but unfortunately, we live in such an offensive world where people are offended by so many things, and at the littlest things, that it's very hard to actually do that.
It really is. I I can't believe people are offended if you don't call them he, she, or well, you look like a girl. So it brings to mind the whole thing I saw. I can't repeat. It was crazy. Um,
Yeah.
confused people.
And I think that one of the things that I have found interesting in doing these podcast episodes is um, that a lot of the people who have gone carnivore, even if they thought one way beforehand, tend to start to think slightly differently afterwards. That it's
Yeah,
like there's this clarity of mind, and sorry, you can't bypass these lies with me. You can't get lies through to me because
right.
my brain is actually working really well, and I'm thinking, and I'm able to look at all of this stuff. Um, it's interesting to note that for me.
my mind started working again. I can remember I have tried over the years to remember my third grade teacher saw me when I was about 20 years old and called my name. And I've tried forever to try to remember her name. And it just came to me one day. And kids I knew in school, or I don't even remember high school that much, other than I hated it. It's too much peer pressure. But everybody made a joke because I'd say, "What did you say your name was?" And my sister-in-law would say, "Don't repeat it. She won't remember it." I couldn't. I couldn't. You could tell me, and a second later it was gone. But
Yeah,
it holds on. Or if I look at a 6-digit number, I look at it and I can remember it and type it in. Whereas before I'd keep looking at it and looking at it. It
yeah,
just never would come through.
yeah. And for me, in my practice, that for me would suggest to me a level of adrenal fatigue, a level of
Right,
fatigue where your body is making compromises on what it can retain and what it can't retain, what it can hold
right,
on to and what it can't hold on to, because it's got this small amount of nutrients to do what it needs to do to keep you alive. Remembering that number isn't quite high on its priority
right.
list.
I used to eat Snickers. I kept them by my bed, so I'd have one like if I needed to eat breakfast, supper, or lunch, and I just eat that. That was my meal replacement. I didn't realize I knew it was wrong and it wasn't healthy, but I didn't really understand just why.
Yeah,
And now I do. It's just not good for you. And I ate fake eggs at that restaurant. I won't be doing that again. I've never had food affect me quite like that. But
yeah,
and the little sausages they had looked like veggie burgers. They weren't even real meat.
yeah.
So much for the free breakfast. I'm glad I made it home before it hit, though.
Yeah.
It's because it was like an hour and a half away.
So, for anyone who is watching this podcast and would like to jump into the groups that we've been talking about, so the carnivore support group,
Right.
what is the name of that group so that they can find you?
I
Are
keep
you
telling people that. Carnivore diet for Christians, I think is what I named it. Um, I was on Facebook and I thought there's no Christian group. I don't, I started one. I had no idea what I was doing. I met Kenda. She taught me through how to set it up, and so she's been my Facebook buddy all this time, and we chat back and forth. Her son's in the Navy, and he's on one of the ships that went to Israel. So she wants prayer for him.
Yeah,
Yeah, he loves it. Of course, I guess I would too if I was 20 years old, or I don't know how old he is. Maybe he's 18. But it's just a bad world sometimes.
yeah,
Well, not sometimes, it is bad. And then
yeah.
I don't even want to go there. Our country's in bad trouble.
Are you happy for people to come and join the group and
Yeah.
interact and all of that type of stuff?
I wish more people would post if you have a question. I did make chat groups, and I've noticed people going and asking questions, and somebody else will answer. And I guess they're more comfortable with that, and
Yeah,
that's fine. If they need a chat group in the Carnivore for Christians, um, they're welcome to just tell me, and I'll
yeah.
make one.
And you're happy for people to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I watched this
Yeah,
video," um, all of that type of
yeah.
stuff.
I wish people with diabetes, especially type 2 and especially liver damage, the fatty liver, just try. It's not that hard. It's harder being sick than it is to be well. Much harder.
Yeah,
It's depressing. And after I started losing weight, I wasn't depressed anymore. I felt completely hopeless. And that was why I was depressed. So,
good. I love everything that you've shared with us. I'm going to go ahead and close this episode
okay.
for now. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been great talking with you, and I look
Nice
forward
to
to
talk
chatting
to
with you
you.
again and seeing
Okay.
each other for
I
the
know.
first time. You see me, I don't get to see you on video much.
Okay.
Good. Thank you so much. And remember, for those that are at home,
Thank you.
to like and subscribe, share with a friend, and tell them about this, because, like Linda and I are both saying, that you don't have to be diabetic. You can actually heal your body, and there are resources and tools to be able to help you do that. So reach out and access them. All right. Bye for now, everyone. Talk to you again
Bye
soon.
bye.